of technology. Isn't that wonderful? So to have all the causes and conditions come together for us to be here to explore this amazing topic of the Buddha's teachings on the mind and the potential of the mind and everything that makes up the mind, which is what we're looking at currently. And, we can think how the Buddha was like amazing psychologist, scientist of the mind, all these things that are being investigated right now by the mind sciences, seeing they have developed as a science, and that this is confirming actually what the Buddha taught based on his own inner discovery in the lab of his mind, and an invitation to us to explore the lab of our own mind and investigate. As the Buddha said, don't take anything I said just because I said it. You investigate for yourself. Okay. So last time we were looking at different mental factors, different functions of the mind. And so we're going to continue on with that today. Has everyone got the notes? You don't have to have them with you, just to know that you've got them electronically. No. Oh. Okay. Can you make a note of that?
So it was a one.
Yeah. Okay. In any case, they don't have them. So you will get them subsequently. Okay, so we were, so what we're looking at today is, oh no, before we get on to that, I wanted to make some announcements. Before I forget, there's a lot happening in July. That's the beginning of my announcement. So in July here, at the beginning of July, we have a visit from Geshe Tenzin Zopa. For those who haven't met Geshe-la, if you've seen the movie Unmistaken Child, that's about him going on a journey as part of the search team, looking for the reincarnation of his teacher, Geshe Lama Konchok. So Unmistaken Child is the child that gets discovered. Punsok Rinpoche now is called. He's now, I keep saying 18, but I think I've said that for a few years. So
Maybe
2021, something like that. Anyway, so he's at the monastery studying in South India. So that's about that. I was listening, Geshe Zopa's teaching at the moment in Dharamsala at Tashita Centre, one of our centres. And they were getting a sneak peek preview of another film that is about actually Geshe Zopa's life. And not that he requested that, he was asked to, to give permission for that film to be made. Its working title is Rice and Sugar, but when he announced it was being shown, because he had to sort of do it without it being, because it hasn't come out yet or whatever licensing agreements there are. He didn't name the film. The people there were just going to get to see it. So those of us online weren't able to get to see it. Why was it called Rice and Sugar? When Geshe-la was young, and I think he went to monastery when he was about 7, and he was asked why he became a monk. See, before that, he was helping his father, and he'd have to go down to the markets and lug sacks of rice and sugar on his back. And he said why he became a monk was that he'd get bucket loads of rice and sugar. He'd get off the rice and sugar probably every meal. So anyway, fortunately, he'll be coming along and giving some teachings. It's in relation to refuge, which is that prayer that we just said, which becomes significant um, once you decide, yes, I'm a Buddhist, I'm going to follow the Buddhist path. Anyway, so he'll be teaching about that when he comes, and that'll be the beginning of July. And we're just trying to coordinate that with the celebration of the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday, which is on the 6th of July, which is the second day Geshe-la's teaching. So anyway, more will be revealed. I think at the moment it hasn't gone, it's being advertised online, but I'm not sure if people can register yet. Then at the end of the month, 26th, 27th, 28th, that last weekend, we have His Eminence Ling Rinpoche, who was here about 10 years ago and gave teachings actually down in the Metro, the hotel at the end of the street. And he said next time he wanted to teach in the centre. Now, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche is a reincarnation of the senior tutor to the Dalai Lama. So he's a very high Lama, and a lot of people are going to want to come and just be in his presence. So I'm suggesting when it goes live, book quickly, because we're going to have people in here, out there, you know, wherever we can fit people in, we will fit people in for that. Anyway, we can talk more subsequently about the teachings that he'll be giving, because I'm away for for the next 3 weeks. It could be closer to 4. And when I come back late June, we've still got some classes, two more classes. But he'll give some introductory teachings and also what we call an initiation. Usually you learn about this in the very last module of Discovering Buddhism. There's a practice of Vajrasattva, which we do. This is the Buddha Vajrasattva, the second one along. I don't know if you can see it very well, a white Buddha. And we use it for practice that we do here. We try and do it every month. We had a retreat on that at Easter time. And it's, I guess one of our main practices. But even if you're not thinking of saying, whoa, that's the deep end of the pool, I don't want to go there, you can still come along and hear the teachings up to it. So that's take as a blessing for the mind. So these are wonderful events coming up very soon. And in the lead up, we have, only found out yesterday, a film screening at Luna Cinema on the 17th of June in the evening. It's called Wisdom and Happiness, about the Dalai Lama. So I haven't seen the film, and they can only have a one-night screening. So Hayagriva will be having a stall and, sort of promoting the events coming up. So it's a good opportunity for the centre. But also, if there's any of these events coming up, either that one or coming up here, and you'd like to sign up as a volunteer, we're going to need lots of volunteers, just saying. Of course, then you've got to find out, what am I volunteering to do? There's various jobs to do. So meet and greet, for example, showing people in where the toilets are, so forth. Lots of things like that. So if you think, oh, I want to, sort of offer my service there, it is, in the design of the Discovering Buddhism program, Lama Zopa Rinpoche had this idea that for our education programs, it's not just getting the, intellectual knowledge. we do the meditation, and we have discussion and so forth. That's the sort of wisdom, developing our wisdom aspect. But then also offering service becomes part of that. Volunteering becomes part of that as well as within our education programs. So it's very much embedded there. We have a few volunteers here already who might want to put up their hands. Who might want to, there's two I can see there, there's one I can see there, there's one I can see there. Just ones that you can talk to. Okay, what's the deal? If you want to get some foreknowledge there. Anyway, you want to get the lowdown. So just, pop that in there. Think about it. As I said, nobody's going to be asked to do something you can't do, obviously, because that wouldn't be helpful and it would be stressful. So why go there? Yeah. Yes.
Public talk, topic is?
The public talk on the Friday night is mind training, which is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the training yet, just the aspects of the mind. Mind training in challenging times, like in the world today. Mind training in challenging times. That's the public talk. I think we had a meeting about it yesterday, and I think it might go live in the next few days. I got lost when they started talking about plugins and all this sort of thing. I was like, fine, over to you. It's not my department. So I'll just leave it at that. But if you want to know when things are coming up and you're not signed up for the e-news, make sure you sign up for the e-news on there. You can do that online. Okay, let's get back to our topic. So these different mental factors, we have these in the notes. It doesn't matter if you have them right now in front of you, that are called variable mental factors or changeable mental factors. There's another term, just let me look here. What's this is called? Changeable mental factors, okay. Which means, so we've been looking at the factors of the mind that help the mind function at all. And then there are subsequently ones that are positive states of mind. They're the ones we want to develop, virtuous mental factors, we call them. There are positive states of mind. And then we have the destructive emotions, thoughts and so forth, negative thoughts that are really just obstacles, hindrances. They're not good for us. We might have noticed. So they're called non-virtuous mental factors. And so these variable ones can be either or they could be neutral. They could be neither virtuous or non-virtuous. So we'll just go through these four and we can think about that. So the first one is regret. So I mentioned the Vajrasattva practice. One of the things involved with that is we have these four elements that we look at. One of it's like we just did, taking refuge, having that sort of power of reliance. Another one is the regret, where we're regretting any harm that we've done, any negative thoughts, any negative action, harmful actions or speech. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Why did that come out my mouth? That sort of thing. And that sort of regret is a virtuous state of mind, is a positive state of mind, right? That we regret any harm. This, by the way, is not guilt. It's not, oh, I did this, I did that. I'm such a bad person. No, delete that. That is guilt. That is not good. That is not helpful to anyone. It just drags you down. And so what we do when we go to the guilt is, yes, I did something wrong, but then on top of that we say, therefore I'm a bad person. No, you're a person who did something wrong, right? This was significant, especially when I was working in the prisons, where you know, I'm working with people who volunteer that they want to learn the Dharma, just like you volunteer, want to learn something, and, you know, want to take the time to train their mind. And they've got this thing, I'm a bad person. Probably they've been told that a lot. And yes, they've done something bad to get in prison. You don't go into prison because you haven't done something bad, although a lot of people will tell you that they're innocent. And maybe sometimes they are, of course. In any case, it's not guilt, because what you're doing there is you're exaggerating. Yes, I made a mistake, but now I'm saying every bit of me is a bad person. There's no such bad person that is 100% bad. In fact, in our nature, everything is positive. In our true nature, everything is positive. So that's our true nature. But then we make mistakes, we get things wrong, we get confused, stuff happens. And so when we generate that mind of regret for that negative stuff, that's a positive thing. Why it's variable is that I could also decide I'm going to go and volunteer for the floods, right? And then subsequently, I regret what I've done. Maybe even to the point that I'll never volunteer for any emergency around ever again. So that's, or say I'm practicing generosity and I give something to someone in the street, or I give something, I give. And then I regret what I've given. Oh, I shouldn't have given that. That was my favorite coat, and now it's cold and blah, 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 blah. That's a non-virtuous state of mind. That's a negative use of regret, right? Can you see the difference? So that's why it said it could be variable. Either it's a positive thing, and usually when we use it, when we're talking about Dharma, we're talking about that positive thing. We say the stronger your regret, the better, but not if it's the resentful regret. Or maybe is it resentful? Doubting, or yeah. The next one is sleep. Sleep. So we don't have to be told what sleep is, right? I don't think. But in the sense of the mind literally going to sleep, or at least the sense consciousnesses we're talking about taking a break, the eyes, the ears, nose, tongue, tactility, that they take a break. Our energy withdraws inwards. You know, when you're falling asleep and you haven't gone to bed yet to settle down into sleep, and your eyes go blurry and so forth. So that's your vision's going and saying, hey, you are not awake, you're asleep. Or like many times, I'm thinking particularly when I was at Chen Resig Institute, and I'd be listening to teachings, actually with Geshe Zopa. They were on late in the evening, and I think, okay, I'll listen to him in bed. And at some point I thought, you're not listening. There's no listening going on. You're sleeping. So take the pods out and close the computer and go to sleep. So our ears, you know, as we're falling asleep, our, you know, capacity to hear goes. So these are things we observe. We can observe easily. And there's what comes along is a darkness of the mind. So, you know, they say the sleep hygiene things, some of the things I've heard is even you have a little bit of light in the room can be detrimental to falling asleep, right? So we try to make the room as dark as we can. I know when I get on the plane, what do? I put the iPad on and put the earbuds in, not plugged into anything. I'm not listening to anything, just sort of noise cancelling. Time for sleep. Okay, so we know what sleep is. So sleep also is a variable factor. So say you had a fight with someone, and as you're falling asleep, you're like, just wait till the morning. boy, am I going to get back at them. I'm, and you're planning and plotting revenge and blah, 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 blah. So that would be a non-virtuous sleep. And so it would also be a very disturbing sleep, don't you think? When we go to sleep with blah, 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 blah going on, particularly if it's got a negative energy to it. And we toss and we turn and whatever. So there's also virtuous, positive states of going to sleep. When I was growing up, I went to a Catholic school, and I heard this story, it stuck in my mind about this nun who every night would kneel down beside the bed, which is what I learned to do, and do your prayers, right? Now, I don't do that beside the bed. I do it on top of the bed, beside the bed, and do your prayers. And then as the story went, and one time she didn't do her prayers, and that night she died. And I thought, how did they know she didn't do her prayers? She was in a room alone. Anyway, that's the story to tell you to do your prayers. That was one I heard anyway. So that would be a virtuous thing. You do your prayers, you get your mind in a positive state. And those of us, or you say, well, I don't know what prayers to do. Fine. You don't have to do any prayers. But you could think, I'm going to go to sleep to, for example, follow the Dalai Lama's advice. The Dalai Lama's advice is get a good night's sleep, at least 8 hours sleep. And then when you wake up, then it's good for studying the Dharma, for meditating and so forth. So that would be a virtuous thing. Get a good night's sleep because tomorrow morning I'm going to meditation. Or that would be virtuous, with or without prayers. Those of us who have prayers to do, we do that. One of the things that I like to do is, so we talk about bodhicitta, which is altruism basically, pure compassion. As we say in this refuge prayer, it says refuge and bodhicitta. It says, by my practice of giving and other perfections, it's okay, we don't know what those are yet, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So as you fall asleep, you could think, well, may I get a good night's sleep so that I can be of maximum benefit to others. I can be well rested, whether that be for my children, grandchildren, family, colleagues, whatever, anyone I encounter, etc., etc. So that would be virtuous. So this bodhicitta sometimes is described as like we have Buddha Maitreya here behind me. Just looking, we can't see it on that one, but you can see there's fluffy clouds up the top. So these fluffy clouds are this bodhicitta, and so I think I'm lying down on fluffy clouds of bodhicitta. It's a very nice way to soften into the mattress, and then putting my head in the lap of the Lama. So if you have a Lama or a lap of Shakyamuni Buddha or some virtuous being, then that would be very virtuous. And we also, I'm guessing people have seen the image of Shakyamuni Buddha lying down. Seen the lying Buddha statues or images. So when the Buddha passed into parinirvana, sort of left this world, then some of those representations are not exact. Like I'm just thinking of one that has the Buddha lying down, but he's sitting up. But when he's doing the full lie down, it said that when the Buddha passed into parinirvana, he was facing west, and he was lying on his right side, and his legs were long, and he had the left leg. When I was in Thailand, they had some beautiful statues of that. And then, but also putting the ring finger to the right nostril. This is for falling asleep, so that it's got something to do with the balancing of the energies in your body. So it's helpful. You might think, no, you might try that and go, that's really awkward. But even doing it for 10 seconds is enough imprint in the mind, and then whatever your preferred posture is. So I'm going to sleep just like the Buddha. Like these are virtuous things to do. And then as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says that, I usually do it with the, sort of whoever's lap I'm in, that there's light streaming from them coming in through your crown. And then it sort of brings a lightness to the sleep, not internal, not turn on the lights, but instead of feeling heavy, groggy feeling, that you wake up more refreshed. So I would just say give any of those a go. So that's all virtuous ways of falling asleep. Of course, we have other practices, like if you've heard of lucid dreaming, when you're asleep, but then some part of your consciousness says, oh, I'm dreaming. Yeah, that ever happened? Has that ever happened to you? Some yes, some no. So this guy, Stephen LeBerge, when he was young, because I can remember when I was young thinking, oh, I'm dreaming. And even one time it was like, oh, no, I'm not. Can't remember if it was I'm asleep or I'm awake. I think it was I'm asleep. And then it was like, no, you're really dreaming. This little dialogue went on inside my head. So that happened to him when he was young, and he saw that that was a skill to develop. So he developed this lucid dreaming to see that actually, if you can bring the light of awareness into your dreams, you can change your dreams. They're just, if you like, fantasy stories of the mind. You could change it. You don't have to have that bad dream. You could say, I can fly away. I can, because we can do anything in our dreams, right? So anyway, he developed this whole, now people learn lucid dreaming. One of our teachers, Ellen Wallace, wrote about that in a book called Dream Yourself Awake. I decided I preferred to sleep. But if you want to experiment, give it a go. Okay, sleep. The next one, next to investigation and analysis, and sort of go, well, why are these two different ones? They are related. So investigation is when we do a sort of general, like we come into the room and we go, oh, wow, there's lights on the taras, right? Isn't that amazing? We haven't really closely investigated, but we've got a general sense. So we generally investigate. We know, yeah, we notice, we might investigate, where does the light come from? But when we get to where does the light come from and who put it there and how does that work and all of that, that would be the analysis one. So that would be going into detail about it. And that mind of analysis is what we use in analytical meditation. We might start, say I do meditation and my object, my visualization is Shakyamuni Buddha. So I could do a general sense of Shakyamuni Buddha, and that's good enough, and then I'll meditate on Shakyamuni Buddha. I've got a general outline of what Shakyamuni Buddha looks like. It's absolutely fine. But then I might subsequently think about all the different parts of the posture and what they represent, because I've had teachings about that and go, oh, that represents this and that represents that, and so forth. So I'm deepening my understanding through that. So that's the distinction of those. So that investigation could be a virtuous one, like I just described, both of these, or it could be non-virtuous. So a non-virtuous investigation, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, we've got this, we talk about mindfulness. There's a big mindfulness industry these days. And the Buddha introduced those teachings classically the 4 close applications of mindfulness. We won't go into that until the next module. So where am I up to? What am I focusing on? Investigation. being positive or negative. But, oh yes, mindfulness. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, even thieves need mindfulness. Like, it's not virtuous or non-virtuous. It depends what you apply it to. So here too, if I'm planning to rob a bank, I'm going to do a general investigation of the layout, time of day, whatever, this and that. But then I'm going to really analyse, how do we get into that bank? There's movies about this you can watch. And not get caught and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, they all seem to know what the safes, you know, and how to open a safe, all this sort of thing. So that would be non-virtuous. So I think that's pretty self-evident to us. Any questions about these factors? That's clear? Yes.
You know, we often talk about sleeping at the correct times and that being quite important. You know, sometimes you're not well and you sleep a lot more than especially during the day as well.
Yes.
When you think you're during those moments, or at least I'm not doing harm to any sentient being.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, I was talking about the Vajrasattva practice earlier. The first time I was asked to go and visit someone in prison, and I introduced to him the Vajrasattva practice. And I said, you do this at the end of the day because you sort of go, is there any harm I did to anyone today? And you do this practice to cleanse that, purify that, detox our mind around that. And I said, and then you go to sleep and you're not harming anyone for 8 hours or however long you sleep. That was the coolest thing he'd ever heard, because he had this sense of, I harm people, I harm people. He was a beautiful, actually he was very lovely young man, very tall, long black hair, and because he had tats and nice. When he was, so he was born in, well, I don't know where he was born. He grew up in Singapore. His mother was Singaporean. His dad was German. He grew up in Singapore. When he was released, when he'd done his time, done his sentence, of course, if you're a foreign national, automatically you're deported. And he was deported to Germany. And it's just like, I don't know German, I don't know father, I don't know anything. But he's still in Germany, and he got a job in aged care, this strapping young man, you know, bathing people and, you know, attending to them. And he just loves it. And I'm like, and I think they love you too. You know, it's just like, oh, you can bathe me. Anyway, he when he connected with the Dharma, like I had to tell him one time, he said, we'd meet in the chapel, and he says, Miss, I've brought all the wing. I brought everybody with me. I said, we're not trying to convert people. Like, do they actually, oh yeah, they want to be here. Just like tone it down. But anyway, he absolutely wonderful human being. So this thing about sleep. So say you're unwell, and say nonetheless you can do your whatever prayers in the morning, maybe you've done refuge and bodhicitta, then even your sleep becomes bodhicitta, right? Even your illness becomes that. Even if you've not consciously done that, you've set that motivation for the day, that direction for the day. Of course, we can add on to that. May my experiencing this illness, you know, sort of free others from having to experience. Of course, it's not going to free anybody else from their own illnesses, but it's going to help our mind to be in a much more positive state. So like one time when I was in hospital, and I was regretting in a negative way, well, I don't know, not being at the teachings with Chökyi Rinpoche. I was like, why am I in hospital? Why am I not at the teachings? Because you're sick and you're in hospital. It was the first time he'd come to Australia. I was in Sydney. But then I got instructions by my teacher over there. from Chodron Rinpoche of what practices to do in hospital. I have to say, most of the time I was sleeping because, you know, my nun friends would come around to visit me and they say, "Oh, we didn't wake you up, you were sleeping." Oh, please do. Because, you know, it's like when you're in hospital. Yeah, anyway, I needed the rest. So it depends on your state of mind at that time. So yes, very much virtuous. Because there's a phrase, I think it comes from Pabonka Rinpoche, but I'm not 100%. It says, "Give up stretching the legs." And I'm like, give up stretching the legs? I love stretching my legs. And what it means is not literally give up stretching your legs, because, you know, our gym trainers are going to tell you, no, you need to stretch. It's about not wasting time, And so various people, I remember Geshe Sultan teaching about this one about sleep, because somebody had read, "Oh, you're wasting the time if you sleep during the day and you shouldn't sleep during the day, blah, 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 blah." And he said, definitely not. He says, I get up, I do my prayers, I have breakfast, I then have a nap. And then he gets up. You're in good company. Any other questions? Okay. All right, then I'll move along to the virtuous mental factors. So here we've got a few mentioned here. So virtuous mental factors, like I said, is the positive states of mind. There's we want to connect with more and more. You know, sometimes it's said that these virtuous states of mind are like flowers in the garden, but they're overgrown with the weeds of all the toxic emotions. So we've got to, you know, sort of get the weeds out of our garden. That's one analogy. Buddha used a lot of sort of like agriculture and so forth, because he was talking to farmers mostly. So we've got these ones like love, compassion, equanimity. So if we add in joy here, these are what we call the four immeasurables. Immeasurables as in positive states of mind have this immeasurable quality. They can only ever grow and grow. It's not like, oh, I've only got this much love, or I've only got this much compassion, or, you know, only got this much equanimity, or only this much joy. So these are called four immeasurable thoughts or four immeasurable minds. And we have practices in Buddhism to cultivate those more and more, to deliberately develop that, so that we're generating positive energy in the world. So, for example, we've got the prayer wheels out here that are full of gazillions of mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum, the mantra of compassion. So when you spin the wheel, then it's like you're generating that energy of compassion in the world. You know, at least we can have that thought that that's what we're doing. Or we recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. And as Lama Zopa Rinpoche has advised us, you recite 10 times. So that's like 108. So 10 times that. Once you learn it, it just takes a couple of minutes. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And then any being that touches the air that touches your skin, or you know, you go into the water, all the beings in the water get blessed by those good vibrations coming out. I mean, people have done experiments with watering plants, and watering plants with the water that's been blessed by somebody blowing on the water who's recited Om Mani Padme Hum, and then with the same water without the mantras, and the, you know, and you contrast and which one's the healthiest. I think they've done that with crystals too, haven't they? Sort of positive energy generated into water crystals or whatever. So there's lots of evidence, I suppose, that that positive energy helps. So in the Theravadan tradition, this is more often translated as the four viharas, or divine abodes. And I just think that's delightful. A divine abode of joy. I'm abiding divinely in joy, or I'm abiding in the divine abode of joy. And joy is, I think, one of the most powerful positive energies that we can have. That joy, that delight, uplifts our mind. It's very much a counter to things like feeling depressed or overwhelmed or so forth. We have meditations on all of these. And I don't know if you've seen the film Mission Joy. Anyone seen the film Mission Joy? There's a couple of nods. So you can see it, find it easily online. It's a film of a Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu in conversation, and they're sharing the joy. So the whole point of that is they both have had very challenging lives. As the Dalai Lama reminds us, I'm a refugee from my own country, and so forth. We forget about that, but that's his history. Desmond Tutu had lots of challenges and so forth. And here they are giggling together like school kids and making stupid jokes with each other. And then at one point, Desmond Tutu tries to get the Dalai Lama to dance, because once you ordain, once you become a monk or nun, no singing, no dancing. Because we do the chanting and there are ritual dances, but not. Anyway, so you can see the Dalai Lama standing up and thinking, I'm trying to play along with it, but I'm trying not to dance. And Desmond Tutu's goading because he knows that he's not supposed to do that. So they have this very playful interaction, but they also talk about the difficult times in their lives. And there's been a whole project developed around this Mission Joy, where you're invited. So you can sign up for it if you Google Mission Joy. It's a scientific project they're doing to see if that transformation of the mind or of the brain, two separate things, by spending more time cultivating joy. So one of the things they ask you to do is reflect on your day and what have been moments of joy in your day. And of course, you're going to do it, you make sure that there are moments of joy in your day. Anyway, it's worth investigating. And so this love, this virtuous mental factor of love, is in the Buddhist context. So we have love is used in general in English in a very broad term. When I was at Vajrayana Institute, one of my fellow residents would say, I love chocolate. And then this monk would say to her, you can't love chocolate. You can like chocolate, but you can't love the chocolate, right? So he was getting very precise. He was the translator, so of course he was going to be precise. But it's this idea of, in the Buddhist context, it is we cultivate a sense of affectionate love towards others, even difficult people. Don't have to invite them home. And the thoughts that go along with that are, may you be happy, may you have happiness and the causes of happiness, may you be well, may you be happy. So wishing that for others. And the Dalai Lama has written a book that has a sort of meditations on this, where you gradually extend that circle of love, from those you already feel that to, and then gradually develop it out to others. It's called Widening the Circle of Love. That's the name of the book. But I think the title might have changed. But I think if you Google Widening the Circle of Love, you'll still find access to that book. And it's quite nice. It's a short book, nice, and it has meditate like this, and then there are booster techniques. Try this on top. Try this on top. It's quite a delightful little book. And of course, also many meditations of compassion. So in the Buddhist context, the one of compassion is, may you be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So may you be free of suffering. So that's the compassionate mind that can't bear to see the suffering of others. we know the story of Jesus Christ who was nailed on the cross, and in his mind, he was taking on the suffering of others. Did it relieve suffering in the world? No, but it was great compassion, right? And the same, I mean, the Buddha has infinite love, infinite compassion. If the Buddha could take away all our suffering, he would. He says, I can't do that, but I can share with you how to develop your mind so that you have less suffering, that you have more joy, more happiness, a more spacious mind, and so forth. Okay? And in terms of meditation, again, when the scientists put these electrodes on, actually in 2005, we had a conference in Sydney. The Centre, Vajrayana Institute, for the next 20 years has been putting on these conferences. That one was Mind in Its Potential. So there were two conferences, Mind in Its Potential and Happiness, and of course it's the love one. and at this Mind in Its Potential one, there was our Tibetan Lama, our sort of senior Lama in Sydney, who's since passed away. And he said they should be putting the electrodes here at the heart chakra. Subsequently, they have, and they, particularly if someone's meditating on love of compassion. But in any case, there's a response at the heart chakra before there's a brain response. Very interesting. And also that the power of meditating on compassion, you do that for 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks, and it has a much more transformative effect on the brain than does meditating on your breath, which we say is a neutral thing. That so just interesting to see that they're able to measure these things these days that before couldn't be measured. So love, compassion, equanimity is that even mind. The Buddha, it said, has even regard for all beings, regardless of whether they help, hinder, or do neither. It's not just, oh, you're Buddhist? Okay, you're in the gang. I'll look after you. Or you're a good person. I'll look after you. No, everybody. In fact, not just every human, every non-human as well. So, for example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our teacher Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I remember Geshe Zopa talking about one time, he's from, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was born in Nepal, up in the Himalayas, a place called Laudo. It's called the Laudo Lama. Laudo means onion. He was the onion Lama. Lama Tsongkhapa was an onion Lama too, gosh.
Yes.
There's a lot of onion lamas. Anyway, it sounds exotic, and then you go, oh, it means onion. That's not exotic. But anyway, he was born up in the Himalayas. So normally these days you'd fly into Lukla, and then you'd have a couple of days trek up to Lado. And Geshe Zopa would say, well, doing this with Lama Zopa Rinpoche was a long journey, because every time you encounter an ant on the path, Rinpoche stopped to do puja for them. And he said, this was terrible, but it got to the point was, please, ants, go away. We're never going to get there. And it's true. I remember being in Bendigo and, having the great honor to escort Rinpoche to the Gompa. And sure enough, actually they had signs going, ant crossing, made it answer here, like answer here. Sure enough, we stopped, puja. Doesn't matter that everyone's waiting in the Gompa for Rinpoche to arrive, the ants have to have their pujas. So all beings, okay. That's that mind of equanimity that we can say, having this equal concern on the basis of we're all in this crazy world. None of us wants to suffer. None of us wants the aches and pains, the diseases, the fear, the grief, all of these things. In that way, we're equal. Good enough. We don't have to go further than that. In that way, we're equal. So it's that even-mindedness is this mind of equanimity. And the mind of joy. Need I tell you what joy is? The Toyota ad. What a feeling. That's the feeling of joy. So this joy, when we look at the four immeasurables, is the joy that we wish towards others. Where it says these four immeasurables, yes, there are immeasurable feelings, but our orientation is towards immeasurable beings, not just the 8.4 or however many billion humans there are in the world, but all the gazillions and gazillions of ants, insects, animals, you know, all those in the oceans, the skies, on the earth, in the earth, whatever we can think of, wishing them immeasurable joy. And the particular immeasurable joy, the one that is the limitless joy, is basically saying, may they become a Buddha. May all beings become a Buddha. You know, may I be the cause for them becoming a Buddha, being enlightened. Meaning what? Being omniscient. So in Tibetan, the word for Buddha, Sangye, the first part, Sang, means having detoxed your mind of all the negative states, which we call afflictions or delusions or hallucinations, you know, multiple names that we use. So all those destructive emotions, thoughts, and so forth, completely having eliminated all of those so they don't exist in the mind of a Buddha at all. Imagine never getting angry. No, not even have the thought to get angry, not having the slightest irritation. Wow. Anyway, that's our job, work towards that, at least reduce. And then, so that's the first part. The second part, gay, is having developed all the positive qualities to their utmost, right? So the state of experience is one of immutable great bliss, but you're not just doing that because, hey, I feel good. I don't know about the rest of the world. It's not like that. It's like, okay, I've achieved this, and this is what the Buddha did. I've achieved this. Now I'm going to teach and show other people, other beings, how to achieve that, including the ants I did puja for. So that is out of all these immeasurable thoughts towards all those beings. Interestingly enough, when we have this list of virtuous mental factors, none of these four is listed. Yeah, none of these four is listed. So we have 11 what we called virtuous, in this list of 51, there's 11 virtuous mental factors. So one is faith. And when we look at faith, we've got to be clear what faith we're talking about. So this faith, as the Buddha said, don't just accept something because I said it. You check up, you do your analysis. You investigate, you do your analysis on top. If you prove anything I said to be wrong, chuck it out. Because all the Buddha was interested in was what? The truth. What is actually true? What is actually real? Not something my mind's made up. Not something my mind's confused about. And so it's this sense of having a conviction, having clarity in regard to those qualities, those excellent qualities, the qualities that are that of a Buddha, excellent qualities and strengths, we call powers or strengths. And that is a support for our aspiration to learn more about Dharma, to get better at meditation, to eliminate the negative states of mind, develop the positive states of mind. Hey, you know, become a Buddha. But it feels so far away. It's you know, our aspiration to at least be a better person. As like another prisoner said to me one time, he was reading a Christian book. It says here, you can be a bad person and a good person in the one lifetime. Is that true? And I said, you can be a bad person and a good person in the 1 minute. We're like, oh, well, now I'm going too far. I've got to think about that. But it's true, right? So this faith we have, we talk about different levels of faith. I'm talking about in the Buddhist context. So blind faith is not helpful because we haven't used our wisdom mind. So, maybe I have this blind faith in someone. I think they walk on water. I think they're just the dream. And then they do something that shatters that all. They've fallen off their pedestal. So that's what happens with blind faith. You're going to be disappointed, right? You haven't used your wisdom mind. So it said that, say, this quality of faith is like, first of all, we have admiring faith. There's a lot of people, they have admiring faith. Oh, the Dalai Lama is a good person. He is indeed a good person, a very good person, a totally good person, right? Only good person. And so that admiration for that. So that's one level. Or you look at a Buddha image and you go, wow, I really like that. I want one of those in my garden. If you do that, make sure it's not on the ground, that it's up on a pedestal. We don't put a Buddha image where our, feet are going to point, so forth. One time, again, at Vajrayana Institute, and there's the Tibetan government in exile, so the representative, the Australian representative, was visiting our centre, and we had and there's a stupa outside, and of course, what's the first thing you do? You go and circumambulate the stupa. And then he says to me, Anila, what's that? And what it was a Shakyamuni Buddha, a stone Shakyamuni Buddha statue on the ledge, which was about this high. The stupa is above, but the ledge is there. And it was sitting there. And I go, oh, Shakyamuni Buddha. Oh, I didn't have to tell him what it was. He knew it was Shakyamuni Buddha. And then I'm like, and then he says, who's the most important figure in Buddhism? And he goes, I go, Shakyamuni Buddha. And he goes, well, what's he doing down there? He's never been down there since. Yeah. Right. So faith. So we have that admiring faith. And then we go a step beyond that. And we aspire to develop those qualities ourselves. Maybe we've come along to teachings and we've heard, oh, I want a bit of that. Oh, is it possible that I can train my mind? And so you aspire to do, right? And then you have this faith of conviction. That's where you've investigated, you've analysed, you've said, yes, I have a belief in terms of, I have this conviction in the Buddhist teaching. So we get to the point, even we say, I don't doubt the Buddhist teaching. And we might say in general, but I'm not sure about all the little aspects. I mean, how can I prove future lives? How can I prove past lives? I can't remember yesterday. How can I remember past lives, etc.? We'll have doubts along the way. But as long as those doubts are leading us to investigate. Anyway, so these are the distinctions. So this faith is that faith of conviction, and that's a support then for that aspiration that wants to develop those qualities. Okay, that's that state of mind. The next two are a little bit tricky in terms of how we label them in English. They're virtuous states of mind, and they sort of go together, but we have to be clear about what it actually means. So the first one here gets translated as shame. So that's the first problem. It gets translated as shame. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, yeah. Another translation, which I quite like, is self-respect. Much better translation. Self-esteem, self-respect, self-regard. So what it means is that we avoid engaging in misdeeds, in doing harm, because we're not living up to our own ideals or our own values, our own moral compass, right? So for our own side, oh, I couldn't possibly say that, couldn't possibly do that. That would be awful. So that's this one of shame. It's not to be confused with the shame that people are shamed because of whatever. You know, people feel shame because they've been abused. Why they feel, you know, no, that is very not beneficial state of mind. We know that. So just as long as we're clear about this. But what it does is, because of that, it acts as a sort of restraint for us to, oh, well, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to steal, I'm not going to say bad things, even though that one could be tricky. Be careful, because it sort of comes out the mouth before you realize. I'm not going to kill. I'm going to do my best not to harm any sentient being, even though that's hard. I'm still going to do my best, right? So it acts as a restraint that I'm not going to engage in certain misconduct. I'm not going to engage in any as much as possible. I had a thought bubble. Okay, the second one's called embarrassment. Again, that's a tricky thing. It's more saying regard for others. So the first one, self-regard, this one, regard for others. Out of regard for others, I'm going to avoid doing any misdeed, saying anything harmful, divisive, and so forth, or doing any harm to others because of my concern for them, right? So my orientation is towards others. It is translated as embarrassment. I think the thing of, well, we often talk about because of cherishing others, you know, orienting towards caring for others. Out of my care for others, I won't engage in misdeeds. So out of concern for others, if I'm a nurse or doctor or whatever, I'm not going to give people poison. I'm going to check the medicine. I'm not going to give them overdose. I'm not going to, you know, whatever. We can apply to anything in life. Out of concern for others, I'm not going to drive crazily on the street because I can, etc., etc. I think we can use our own examples. Yeah. Clear? Clear? Okay, the next three go together. So the first one's called non-attachment, the next one non-hatred, the next one non-ignorance. So we have these minds that we call the three poisons. Three poisons. They totally poison our mind, totally hijack our rational, calm, even positive mind, and it just gets totally taken over. So, and these are the ones that underlie every other disturbing state of mind. So, for example, the first one is always attachment, desirous attachment. Sometimes it's called sensual desire, sensual attachment, in that it's based on the senses. I can smell that coffee, but my doctors told me not to have coffee, but I still crave that coffee, or whatever, right? Or we see something and it's just like, I've got to have it. I've got to have it at all costs. An amazing new car, the amazing house, the amazing anything person, even though I'm already married or at least committed to someone, I can't help resist, whatever. This desirous mind. It said being in this world is being in a realm of desire. You might not have a desire for very much at all. But then the ads do this job on you. And they turn you around and just like must have, right? Because that mind of desire is quite strong. So it's easily sucked in to those things. So nothing wrong if it's all under control. But when that desire is out of whack, it disturbs your sleep. You know, I can't help but think about that person or that chocolate or that coffee or whatever. And then you can't even sleep because you're thinking about that, right? So that's where it's out of whack. So this one of non-attachment, sometimes it's called detachment, but that, I think in English, detachment is like can be again used in a sort of, oh, I'm detached, means I'm emotionally detached. And that's not what this is. It means the absence of that, you know, this person, this chocolate, it's going to be the answer to all my dreams. That mind is, I'm not attached. If it's there, if that nice chocolate is there, happily have it. Like, please help yourself. There's plenty out there. I think, have not gone. Have that thing, enjoy it while it lasts. But when it's gone, it's not like, oh, where am I going to get the next bit? That craving and grasping that gets set up is the thing that disturbs our mind. So we have things and enjoy them while we have them. So have you heard of Tenzin Palmo, Jetsunga Tenzin Palmo? So there was a movie made about her, which was based on the book, which was her story, Cave in the Snow. She was a British woman who, in the 60s, must be in the 60s, I think, around about now, so 50 years of ordination celebration. Anyway, so she, long story short, she went to India and became a nun in the Tibetan tradition, you know, met her Lama. He recognized her from her previous life. So she was British. She grew up, and what was her mother? She was some form of spiritualism or whatever. Anyway, so she connected with her Lama from past life. She didn't know that she had connected from past life. He recognized her. And then he gave her instructions, and she ended up in retreat for 12 years in a cave in India. And she would have been longer, but the person who was supposed to be renewing her visas, blah, blah, the police came and knocked on the cave door. There was a door, but came to the cave and said, you've got 3 days to leave India. So that disrupted, but she's subsequently been a great force for, particularly for women in Buddhism, particularly for women from the Himalayan region, from India, Nepal, Tibet, and so forth, and set up a nunnery and training for them, and now has extended that out to all other traditions. She's an amazing, powerful teacher in Live Encounter. So on this attachment side, this desire side, when she ordained, she had a friend who was a Russian princess or something, who took her to her palatial abode for a holiday. And she said, I can't go there. I've just become a nun. I've renounced all of that. You sort of like give away everything you can. And, you know. And her friend said, well, yes, you can. You can come and enjoy it while you're here. And when you're in your cave, freezing cold, with weevils in the flower, then you can enjoy that, right? Wisdom, yeah, her friend did a great service. Of course, we had a visit, at least over East, when I was over East, from this Austrian woman who, you know, more recently, I suppose, but anyway, she's in her 40s. When she must be in her 50s now. When she was around 20, She was Austrian, but she was, I think, in Switzerland. She went to a teaching. And the teacher, again, recognised her, didn't just gave her instruction, come and see me in Nepal, come and see me at Bodhanath, which is near Kathmandu. Anyway, he gave her this street address in Bodhanath. I don't know if you've been to Bodhanath, but the streets don't really have names. And so she was searching for this street and never found this street. And then she said to someone who she was looking for, and they went, oh, he's down there. As she walked down the street, he saw her and called her up. The next 3 years, he gave her intensive teachings and sent her up in the mountains, not to a cave. It was a hut. She said this was a sort of like a log cabin type thing. Anyway, she endured great hardship even getting there. She said she had a Sherpa guide, and the first night, they made a fire. And she had like a puffer jacket type thing, or the jacket sizzled to smithereens. Anyway, she got up into this hut and she said there were gaps, gaps between all the logs, and it was quite windy. So she had sweet wrappers and we'd put them in to fill up the gaps. And then she had no heating. So she had no hot water, didn't have much at all. But then after a while, the villagers, because they see Westerners come and go, they like, I don't know if they took bets, how long is this one going to last? But after a while, they started bringing her supplies and so forth. So she was there for 20 years. And then the Lama told her to come, actually, Australia and New Zealand, which she did. And when she was in Sydney, someone asked her, you're in Sydney. How's that experience different? It must be very different to when you're up there in the Himalayas in your retreat hut. And she said, no, same. Same. So this is this mind of non-attachment, that whatever's there is, and you're not attached to, this or that, not having preference for this or that. It's a sort of liberating state of mind. We might also say it's being content, but content has a bit more of a stronger flavour. But it is, I think it is being content, just being content with what you do have, not craving for something else. That's the attachment mind that craves for, if only you had a bigger this or a better that or whatever. Okay, this is this mind. Okay, just finish these three. And the one of non-hatred. So when we talk about hatred, we also talk about this continuum of anger, so that from the very slightest irritation, maybe build up anger, road rage, or rage, and then it gets stronger. We have hatred, mind of revenge that's going to get back or going to fight the wars or whatever. So that's, as we know, a very destructive state of mind. Just think about a moment of anger that you can recall. We're not going to relive any moments of anger, but how you even know that you're in a state of anger. What's your feedback from your body say in anger? Any thoughts about that? You might tension, clenching of the jaw. Even we don't make the fists. We might make the fists, but it said that blood. I mean, I'm not aware of blood rushing to the fists, but there's a blood rush there so that you get ready to fight, right? Your heart beats faster. Is that something else? No. So there are many physical feedbacks to tell us this is the state of anger, but also what does the mind do? Then we can track the thoughts that come along with anger. And so the earlier we can shine a light of awareness on that, the earlier we can nip it in the bud, when it is just that slight irritation, frustration, or whatever. we can do that. I worked on a program in schools that's exactly what we were doing. It's called Cooling Conflicts. And basically it was a theatre-based program because I was in theatre, and there was a research that was being done, how quickly, you know, you can intervene to change that story, to, you know, basically drop the anger, drop that moment, delete. So the mind of non-hatred is a mind that has done that completely. It's a lack of malice towards any being whatsoever. You know, the difficult ones in our lives, the ones that we can't bear to say the name of, we cross the street to avoid those ones. So complete lack of malice. Yeah. Revenge, those sort of toxic minds. And also towards our own suffering. So a lack of the mind that says, oh, it's on my own fault. I did this, you know, I sprained my ankle because I did that, you know, like I was running on your shoe, whatever. And we beat ourselves up. Why? We just make ourselves worse. So that's the internalized, if you like, anger, hatred, and so forth. And also to the sources of that suffering. So usually we talk about that sources of suffering of other toxic states of mind. We'll get onto that later. So being free of all of that, having this mind of that has an absence of hatred, doesn't want to have revenge on anybody, doesn't beat ourselves up. Wouldn't that be liberating? That state. And then we have one of non-ignorance. And again, we look at this mind of ignorance in the Buddhist context. So yes, I can say I'm ignorant of many languages in the world. I just haven't learned them, or ignorant how to play tennis, ignorant. There's many things, but it's not that level of ignorance. It's the ignorance, or rather confusion, that I mentioned that the Buddha was a seeker of truth, of how things actually exist. And that's what we're ignorant about. Yes, they exist, but we apply permanent to something that's not permanent. Relationships, this will last forever. And even, I was just thinking, I was asked to go to a friend's wedding. When they asked, it was very joyful. First of all, it was joyful because I was having a week of bad news. So, you know, people dying and whatever. So it was very joyful. They'd already been together 34 years. And I'm like, so why? I mean, you've done the road test. Anyway, they had their reasons. They were legal ones, and that's fine. But they also had the big wedding. They assume they're going to be together because they said it in their wedding vows for another 34 years. I didn't point out you're already in your 70s. I think they figured that out for themselves. But anyway, so the idea that things last forever is something we're ignorant of, because that's not realistic, is it? What else might we ignorant of where we get it completely wrong? Anybody? Not thought about it? Not
Life
really.
itself, I guess.
Life itself, exactly. Life itself. So this one about impermanence, we talk about developing the wisdom of impermanence that realizes that actually everything is changing moment by moment. You know, people want to reverse the aging process and do the Botox freeze. It was just like, I've earned these wrinkles. Get real, right? I was so devastated when I heard many years ago there was used to be called the Insight program, I think, on SBS. And there was one woman talking about giving Botox as a gift to her 8-year-old. 8 years old. You got the best skin in the world that you're ever going to have. 8 years old. I mean, what sort of message that's in? Botox does have its place. You know, our Tibetan Lama who I said has passed away, and from Sydney, and he had to have Botox for his eyes. He had them for a few months. Had it for a few months. Actually, he gave up his. I don't like the Botox. He said, "Don't give me that anymore." But it was for his eyes, so it does have a medical function. Just saying, it's not all bad. Yeah. So what the Buddha was talking about in this mind of ignorance is the one that elaborates on top of what is there, what isn't there. So you might dislike someone because they said something to you you didn't like. But all of a sudden, I can't stand the way they dress. I can't stand the way they talk. I can't say anything about them. So that's exaggerating. Like there was this one little incident, but I've exaggerated it onto the whole person. And forever after, they're in that category. I had two friends well, no, one was in Sydney. No, one was in Melbourne, right? But they were working on committees together. And the one in Melbourne stopped talking to the one in Sydney. And I asked her one time, why? Oh, no, the one in Sydney asked her, why? Why don't you talk to me anymore? When you said something, I don't remember what it was, but I couldn't even remember. Off the Christmas list. Anyone belong to those Scottish clans who still... It's what wars are made of, isn't it? Anyway, this one of exaggerating. We also, on the other side, something that we desire, object of desire, and we exaggerate the positive qualities. I mean, what the ads will tell you that new car can do for you, or that chocolate can do for you, or that whatever can do for you, that is that mind of exaggeration. Right? So way down the track, we have another module on that, wisdom of emptiness, which is the opposite, the wisdom mind that comes along. So this non-ignorance is the mind that sees everything just like a Buddha does, just exactly as it is, no elaboration on top, just as it is. Okay. We're going to leave it there for today. Any questions, comments, observations, contribution? Food for thought. Okay, I'll leave you with that, food for thought. So, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanking improves your thinking. It's been proven. There have been some, no, it's true. One of these conferences we had in Sydney, the woman presenting was presenting on exactly that. Thanking improves your thinking. I think, good, if you want to get smarter, just keep saying thank you. I mean, it's a positive state of mind anyway. I like to be thanked. Thank you for thanking me. And as I said, I'll be away until, I think next class I'll be with you is the 22nd of June. Meantime, Venerable Drolka will be, no, that's Venerable Pekar, but Venerable Drolka, who's over next door with us as well. Some of you might have met her. So she will be doing the next 3 Sunday mornings on Buddhism in a nutshell, which that will be covering like the life story of the Buddha and the introduction to the Buddha's first teaching, which is the Four Noble Truths. So we wanted to maintain some continuity. So she will be leading those sessions over the next 3 weeks. Okay. So let's read this verse of dedication here. Page 5. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So this act of dedication, we say, is like putting a seal on an envelope in the old days. We're sealing in all the positive energy that we've generated here this morning, sealing that in our mind so that even we inadvertently engage in one of these negative states of mind like anger, it doesn't destroy the merit, the virtue that we have created here. Sealed. Okay.